Okay, good morning, everybody. Well, good morning for Australia, actually. So here we are in Melbourne, Australia, just waiting for Keenan to join. Um, Welcome, Keenan, Austin. Welcome everybody to today's webinar on how Canada's top marketing agency ship websites faster, increases client satisfaction, and retains its employees. So many of our teams frustrated with messy feedback process. It hurts delivery, it hurts the team. You're not alone in that. It's one of the biggest pain points that we see across, thousands of agencies, the customers we have across the world. I'm Stephen Neville, CEO of BugHerd. Before BugHerd, I ran an agency. This is a problem I've lived in quite deeply. And today, we're going to talk about how Longhouse have solved that problem and break it down. And this is one of the rare sessions where we might actually get to talk about BugHerd. Normally, we like to keep this fairly high level, so it's different for me and exciting in its own way as well. So very briefly, we've got people joining from all over the world today. I'd love it if you could drop into the chat, let us know where you're joining in from. As I said, we're here in Melbourne, Australia. Got the little kangaroo there as well, just to show. Um, as I mentioned, joining us today is Keenan and Austin from Longhouse Branding and Marketing in Vancouver. Great to have you both here. Keenan, I guess I'll start with you. It'd be great if you could just give us a quick introduction to yourself and Longhouse.
No, first of all, I'm very excited to speak. Quite the turnout. It doesn't surprise me. We've been using BugHerd for a while and it's a great product. So to see that your reach goes to, I'm seeing in the chat, Germany and the United States, more Australia, more Canada, that is awesome. I'm Keenan, started Longhouse a little over 8 years ago now. Very blessed to have a really great team, including Austin, who can solve absolutely any problem. There was a time when I was moving, and in that process, Austin found a Rubik's Cube, and sure enough, he asked me, "Can I have this Rubik's Cube?" I said, "Sure." I've never been able to solve it. He came back the next day, and the Rubik's Cube was solved. I think he can still solve a Rubik's Cube very fast. He's um, the smartest person I've ever met, and we are uh, very excited to be building and growing Longhouse together. We are Canada's marketing agency, is what we like to say. And the way that we've become that is investing in the tools, the people, um, and any questions today that anyone has, we're really happy to see them in the chat and then answer them.
Yeah, great. And Austin, yourself, your background, your how long you been at Longhouse for and experiences?
Yeah, so I've been at Longhouse since the beginning. And, as a CTO, I lead our web and SEO departments. Day to day revolves around just looking into our tech stack and our processes and just looking for efficiencies to, help the business grow and get better results for our partners.
Excellent. Now, someone had mentioned just in the chat there that there was a bit of reverb. So just if anyone is still having that problem, can you let us know so I can see if we can adjust? I've tried to change the microphone and maybe turn it down, but if anyone is still having that problem in the chat, just drop it in and let us know. Okay, good. Sounds good. We'll move on for now. So excellent. Quick housekeeping. As we obviously have the chat open, we also have the Q&A open. So please drop any questions in there as you go. We'll cover as many as we can during the webinar, but also we'll have some dedicated Q&A time at the end. Of course, the session is recorded. We will send that out, send the video out shortly after. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. Lots to talk about today. So I guess the main conversation we're going to have is really around like the shift from what happened before you went and fixed a process to after. So as a setup, I guess like what was the problem? Like when before what was the sorry words. It's early here at 6 o'clock, remember? Well, what did running web projects look like at Longhouse before? And was there a moment where you realized something had to change specifically?
Yeah, I can answer that one. So yeah, early on, our process was pretty straightforward. Like we worked out of Facebook Messenger when we had like 3 or 4 team members, and project updates were all living there, and revision requests were living there, and obviously things got lost and became pretty frustrating internally, and then for our partners as well. Um, so yeah, like we mainly just worked out of like a content document. we would say, hey, fill it out. We'll put this content on the website, but we didn't really have like a formal wireframe or mock-up process. So we were definitely learning a lot early on, and revisions were obviously a big problem with that.
And what was the kind of specific moment where you said, "Hang on, this needs to, we need to look at this process and find a better way."
And I'll jump in on that one. What worked when we were a team of two or three worked when we were a team of two or three. We were able to send messages back and forth on Facebook and use a content document. And, for the type of clientele that we were working with at that time, we were getting pretty good results. But that's because Austin is so unbelievably talented. As we grow a larger and larger team, we're one of the largest marketing agencies. What we say is like south of the Fraser River, over in British Columbia. Systems become mandatory and frameworks become necessary, and the infrastructure and the tools that we invest in become absolutely required. The moment probably was when we hired like our fourth or fifth person. When we were doing two or three projects at a time, could we go back and forth and Austin and I, between the two of us, remember everything that we needed to get done? Pretty much. But hiring the fourth team member was when we started investing in our infrastructure that's allowed us to grow.
And are you a distributed team or work within like in an office? As in, is everybody in Vancouver, or is people from across Canada, or do you work in an office? Are you at home? Like what? How do you? What's the percentages of being together? I guess.
I really believe that one of the reasons Longhouse has been able to grow is because we're an in-person office. We all come to our hub. We're just outside of Vancouver. We're in Langley, British Columbia, Canada. And we're a full service marketing agency. So we have our web team, our branding team, our advertising team. We're building out an even bigger analytics squad right now within our business. And because everyone's able to walk over to everyone's desk and we're having lunch together, we have a little Japanese market right below our office that I'm looking at. There's always a line out the door because it's so popular. All these little micro collisions of creative people allows us to consistently get the results that we're known for at Longhouse.
Yeah, because my observation then was also that you can get away with less process in a way if for longer if you're all together. Like those cracks show up much more quickly when you are distributed or you're working in a kind of virtual way together or asynchronous way. Like those process things show up, or problems in that show up a lot earlier, I think, rather than because you can't just go over and talk to the person quite as easily. So that was an interesting thing. When you talk about where the kind of issues were in those early days, like how were they showing up, amongst your team? Because I know that's a big way of how you think about this, the problems that you were having.
I think as we grew in terms of our project load, uh, I think the biggest problem was just not having the formality. So we went through a few different growth eras in our business. And I think I'll start with the pajama era to really paint the picture of, how we were talented, but maybe we were immature. We're already young people growing a new business. And the way that I was showing up, as Austin will remember, he's seen all of my pajamas. I would walk down the stairs. We had a home-based office, and we would work at essentially the dining table of the house we were living in. And I would walk downstairs in the morning in my pajamas. I would come home from jujitsu late at night, and I would shower, clean, put on other pajamas, and then go work again until 1 a.m. But that's not sustainable. We were in our early 20s. We were able to put in tons of energy early on in the business, and uh, we needed to find a way to grow the business in a consistent way that didn't require 20 hours of work every single day, being so stressed that you're not even getting ready and dressed in the morning.
Uh, That's interesting. I think we might even have a client of yours, like a Jane Clark in here, who's been a client since PJ's for sure. Whether of yours or someone else's, who knows? Who knows the experiences? Which is a great segue, I guess. Were those things you said, how that was showing up for the team, but how was that period showing up for your clients? Was it were there were they seeing the crux as you grew, or was it all smooth sailing on the outside and the inside is where the problems were?
It became a risk factor. I wouldn't say that we've ever risked our reputation. We were able to live in that energy output for a season, but before we started to burn out, we did recognize that we needed to invest in the team and build out a culture that could carry that torch forward. Uh, we've always been able to maintain our reputation. It's unusual to have over 150 like 5-star reviews across various review platforms. And I feel that's because we've always been aware of deficiencies. And Austin and I, in particular, we're very willing to invest in innovation if that means getting better results for our clients and making life within Longhouse better for our employees, which also includes ourselves.
Yeah, great. And so I might change tack slightly and just jump into some of the more process stuff. I'm interested at what point and probably for you, Austin, at what point in this kind of evolution, BugHerd came into the process, and what specific part of that problem you were trying to solve at the time.
Yeah, so like a story comes to mind where we had a client and they're still a client to this day. They're fantastic. But they weren't like super technical. And the way they would leave revisions on a website project we were working on was they would take a screenshot of the web page, scan it out, mark it up with a pen, take a picture or scan it, and then send it back. And we did probably like 5 rounds of revisions that way. And yeah, like that was fine for me to manage, but I couldn't ask anyone on my team to do that. And that's just like a funny story, but it was like probably a year later when we started really looking into tools like BugHerd. We noticed, revisions were getting longer than they should be. Team members getting frustrated, and we just wanted to like launch a website that we are really proud of. So yeah, we knew we had to change something in the process.
It's not the first time I've heard stories like that either. Of people taking with a mobile phone, taking a photo of the website, marking it up, scanning it out. So I've actually heard that multiple times over from multiple people, which surprises me given that there are specialist tools, not just us, that will do the job significantly better than that. I'm curious to know. So when you kind of discover BugHerd, you thought, hey, here's a better way to do this. And you said, okay, I'd like to introduce this. Did you get any resistance from either internally from your team or in particular as well, those non-technical clients? So can we talk about each of those maybe separately?
Yeah, like internally, I think like our team was definitely relieved to use a tool like this. They could see that it would work and it would streamline our process and just make it easier for our clients as well. Client facing, we didn't get really any resistance. It like we have our education deck that Keenan will go over, but we introduced BugHerd pretty early on as a tool and have a little demo of like how to use it. And if anyone does run into an issue, it's really easy to resolve. And yeah, it's definitely improved our process a lot.
And from a client perspective, were they, any resistance in that front, or they also saw? I mean, asking someone to go from printing something out and marking it up in paper and sending it back. Some people can't be helped either. So there is a line there. But in general, did you find clients very, very accepting?
Oh yeah, they're very receptive. Like they found it obviously super easy just to like point and like click on a section and annotate it. After a few tries, like yeah, they were leaving a lot of feedback and no, it was great.
I'm actually curious if you were to describe the value that, in particularly as you touched on it, then the value that we bring into that process. You know, yeah, how would you describe, I guess, what we do for you?
Yeah, I think, it's a frictionless tool for them, and it makes them less frustrated to begin with, and it gets them excited to launch the website. And like our goal is to use the website as a growth tool. So getting them on SEO or ads. We want to expedite that process and start using the website. So having them excited and happy and not frustrated is definitely ideal for us.
Ken, anything to add or?
So Austin's touched on a really great point. It's like we see websites as a growth tool for a business, whether that's through search engine optimization or the new thing, which is AEO, AI engine optimization. Some people refer to it as answer engine optimization or generative engine optimization. Longhouse is very focused on using websites as a tool for that. One of the key parts of using BugHerd for us is getting websites out 2.5 weeks faster. We tracked, what is our production timeline pre-BugHerd? What is our production timeline post-BugHerd? And I feel that that increase is, or decrease rather, that improvement is from closing the negative feedback loop. When somebody has no way to express themselves, they can feel trapped. And when someone feels trapped, they want to be extra meticulous, extra careful, which is tough on the business because our production timelines, that's, growth being possibly lost. If we're not able to get a website live for somebody quickly, that's a risk to not being able to get onto a growth service, which is, really great operationally for us to have, but also it gets the client the results that Longhouse is known for. People are coming to us because they're looking to get new customers in their business, or they're looking to get awareness out about their brand. And without a website, you can't do that. So getting websites out 2.5 weeks faster, reducing feedback by like 88%, because they're able to get it all out in that kind of first interactive round of revisions through the BugHerd interface, adds a lot of value to our team, because it increases the client experience. It helps align with like the Longhouse business objectives, and our team is happy. Our team is so much happier knowing that they're getting good results for our clients and knowing that this round of revisions is the last round of revisions.
Yeah, that makes me happy hearing that. So, deep down, getting those little, feelings on the inside when people talk about how our product helps them like that. We have a question from Jeff, actually, which is a great segue as to what my next question was going to be. So thank you, Jeff. We must be thinking the same. Can you describe, maybe again, Austin, what the wider Longhouse tech stack looks like? So Jeff's question is specifically around what software do you use for project management? But I guess, there's other bits of software amongst BugHerd as well. So what they are, and then also, how do you connect those if you do?
Yeah, so for project management, we use Monday.com. That's across the entire business. So for web, branding, graphic, SEO projects, everything lives on there. BugHerd communicates, we integrate BugHerd with Slack. So we do have a dedicated Slack channel for when revisions come through. And it makes it easy for our team to stay on track of those. Specifically for web design, we're a WordPress agency, so we build on WordPress. Elementor specifically is our website builder, and then we host on a platform called Cloudways.
And do you just quickly design in the browser for Elementor, or is there a design elsewhere like a Figma or something like that as well?
We love Figma.
Figma is fantastic. We depends on the project, but yeah, we would do Figma as a high fidelity mockup and then translate that into Elementor using an in-browser editor.
Awesome. And so we've talked a bit about, the problems. We've talked about BugHerd's, how BugHerd has helped through that. But I guess brilliant, and I think our audience has been interested, is what, you've done a lot of work across the full process. And so what does today look like? If you could walk us through, say, what a web project looks like at Longhouse now from kick off all the way through to launch?
Yeah. Why don't I pull up what we call an education deck. An education deck at Longhouse is something that's a bit newer. We've introduced this as a way to uh, call it educate our prospective clients or clients that have recently onboarded into what the entire service experience is going to look like. So what I'm going to do is I am going to screen share right now. Let me know when you can see this.
Still going a bit slow. Here we go. We're up now.
All right. So this is what we call an education deck. So it goes over what the entire lived experience of a Longhouse client is going to be. So we cover, what to expect, how we build a website, creating content, how feedback and revisions are going to look like for them. We're always asked, like, how many rounds of revisions does a website project include? And it's kind of like a loaded question because it's not about the round of revisions. Having 5 rounds of revisions should not be a selling feature of your packages. You want to have like no revision. You want it to be so perfect on like the first round of feedback that you're saving time for your clients. Our agency, our brand messaging is all about winning time back for busy leaders so that they can focus on what actually needs them the most. So we don't want to have 3, 4, 5 rounds of revisions. We want them to load it all into BugHerd after they've seen the website one time, have us make all those changes and make sure the website is ready to be deployed and ready to be used to grow. Our process probably have things like this in your agencies as well, but starts with discovery. We do a lot of like peer research, market research. We want to really make educated decisions when we're designing your website. If you happen to have historical analytics, that's also really interesting to know. We're really big on looking at like Microsoft Clarity, like the heat maps that exist from current analytics. But then we also like to see what are the most viewed pages, or what are the most viewed pages of people that have come to the website and then converted into a customer. We develop content, design and develop, launch, and then we also try to outline in the process what support looks like. And we won't go through all of this per se, but the big main features are that research. We build out a sitemap. Austin can jump in and talk about wireframes briefly, maybe before I move on.
Yeah, for sure. So wireframes are really important, something we weren't really doing in the beginning stages of our web design process. So we were going from a content document right to a live website, and there was no in between where our clients could visualize, how each section worked together. So that was the purpose of the wireframe. And then we use a tool called ReLoom for this, and it's really great. Allows our content specialists to write directly into the wireframe, makes it easy for our clients to leave feedback on it. And yeah, we've seen a big improvement since implementing that.
Especially for the full-time writer in-house on our team, being able to kind of see a little bit of like how the website's going to be laid out helps them conceptualize. But also when we start to get like content feedback from a client, I'm sure every web developer's seen this, will have like a 4 or 5 word headline, but then maybe a client wants to put in a revision and they add 14 words to that headline. Having a visual in the wireframe stage makes it clear to the client as to why they may benefit from having a shorter snap your headline or a non-textbooky content section. This is something that makes Longhouse unique. We have a storytelling framework that's applied to everything that we do, just very briefly. This works for ads. This works for content structure on a website. But the first thing when you're trying to get someone to read more or pay attention to you is you have to empathize with them. You have to hook them in the first 3 seconds. if you've ever read like the Donald Miller story brand framework, he really emphasizes the importance of activating the survival response of the viewer in your marketing campaign. And that to me can be outlined by empathizing. You empathize with the reader, what are their fears, what are their goals? And when you say exactly that to the reader, they pay attention to how you benefit them. This can be outlining your services, this can be outlining your packages, whatever. But then if they haven't taken action yet, you got to build trust with testimonials or your process, and then many other things like meet the team. And then at the end of the funnel, that's when you should try to win. But going through our process, we write content, make sure you have good website photos. And then we get into, our trust section of that framework, which is outlining what their lived experience is going to be as a Longhouse. We call our clients partners. So as a Longhouse partner, you're going to have an opportunity to do revisions. We outline what vague feedback might look like, and then also what specific feedback. This then leads to a video where we demonstrate how we use BugHerd, or how the client rather can use BugHerd.
So I asked you quick before, but I'll re-ask it again because I'm very interested in the fact that you've created your own video in that rather than using, say, one of our assets. And so, yeah, could you briefly touch on, I guess, why creating that asset for yourself you felt added additional value?
So we create our own videos often. In our experience, in the Longhouse kind of experience, Austin is a department manager, and he may not be introduced to every one of our partners. So this is an opportunity for them to see the face of the person that they've been introduced to by email, while still protecting Austin's time to focus on the bigger picture of Longhouse, which is improving our products, training our team, and keeping our agency, competitive with our innovation and workflows. So this kind of wins some time back for Austin while still making sure that the partner gets to see all the faces that are on the team. We have a role that Austin manages called a results manager. That's our term at our agency for a project manager. And that person is in charge of the results for the specific project. So they're able to use this video to outline what the process is going to look like, and they get to see Austin.
That's great. No, I do think there's a part of that, building trust in that experience as well, which I think is interesting. And also, if for anybody here, if you feel that we can improve our assets, in that process, so you don't need to do that yourselves as well, then please let us know. The other thing in that process that I really loved there was your example of bad feedback being, can we make it pop? The other one I always use as an example is, make the logo bigger. It's, we used to have a T-shirt like this with make the logo bigger on the back. And people would stop me walking through buildings and say, I've been asked that, 100 times because it's just one of those things. Thank you for sharing that. I thought it was very, very interesting and very thorough. And I think, again, that's what kind of builds trust between a client and an agency. I've got a question here from Jeff again, so I'll go straight to it. But feedback for Keenan, great presentation you shared. Would love to see the full slide deck. There you go. We'll share details after this, and Jeff, you'll be able to contact Keenan directly. And there's some details, so you'll have to deal with that question, Keenan. Okay, to quite a few numbers you touched on earlier. You talk about 6 hours a week, deliver 2.5 weeks faster, cut reconciliation time by 88%. Which of those things surprised you most? And very importantly, where does that time go now?
We put all of our saved time into improving our products, or specifically the creative time. People are hiring Longhouse to get either the best looking website or the website that is best going to get them lead generation results. For us at Longhouse right now, we're really focused on the answer engine optimization. How do you become the answer on platforms like ChatGPT? We're one of Canada's only agencies that has evolved fully from SEO to AEO. Um, we use a framework called answer mapping, and essentially we want to think through how is the website going to live in the world that's changing quicker and quicker to be within a conversation rather than a search results page.
Yep.
So one of the ways that we are applying that save time would be on uh, uh, reallocating that to like lead generation aspects of a website. Another would be onto how the websites actually look. But I would say the one thing that surprised me the most was how important, and it's actually not one of the metrics that you said, it's how much happier our team is. Marketing agencies, branding agencies have notoriously high uh, employee turnover, meaning employees like leave the agency. We don't have that issue at Longhouse, which I think really contributes to the results that we get. Because if a website project goes for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, some can go for a few months. If the project manager has to change, if the specialist has to change during that time frame, results suffer. So the stat that I would say I'm most proud of, because Austin brought the tool to my attention, we were able to implement, is how it's made our team's lives easier, which has to contribute to our low employee turnover rate and thereby our results.
You've stolen my question, but that's great because that was definitely something I wanted to dig into a lot, because I do think it's very interesting, and it's I think about, I guess, the value of our product in a sense of there is time saving. I asked you this before, when we were talking about this webinar. There's a time saving aspect. Are we doing better work? Like, does it get to better outcomes, or is it generating kind of revenue outcomes for us or something? And your answer was actually it's like it's an internal thing more than anything else. It actually makes our team happier. And I found that an interesting reflection on the way you think about culture in your organization, but also an interesting reflection on the value that like our product brings to you. So yeah, not so much of a question, but I did find that very interesting. I guess to skip into the way a lot of people do think about kind of tools, software like this is, that change of how the client's experience working with Longhouse. We've kind of touched on that, but has that directly translated, do you think, into more work?
I'm going to defer to Austin on this one.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. So definitely, it makes the experience more collaborative for the partner. Um, it's easy for them to do, like to leave feedback. It's not complicated. So, I mean, having that experience right away for them is obviously like it leads them to be like, okay, what else will doing SEO or advertising or AEO with Longhouse be like? Will it be this easy and enjoyable? Will it be collaborative? So, yeah, it's definitely translated to more of those other services we can offer.
Yeah.
I have a great addition to this because Austin's very much in the delivery of the product, and particularly like revisions is the last experience that somebody has with our product. So it's like going to Costco. Costco is one of my favorite businesses because on the way out, I just spent $500 on things, rotisserie chickens, and these bulk
Yeah.
things that you know uh, are great for everything. The last experience at Costco is getting $1.50 hot dog. And I feel so great
Yeah.
leaving Costco that I want to go back the next week and buy another $500 of bulk food.
Yeah.
At Longhouse, the last experience is revisions. And if that part of our process isn't a delight, they're not going to recommend us to other people. They're not going to come back for a second service or a third service. Longhouse grows because we have long partner lifespans, meaning they'll get one thing off of their to-do list with Longhouse. And then we lead that into, oh, that was a relief. I want to keep getting things off of my to-do list. I might have to pay a little bit more to have Longhouse do it, but you kind of get that guarantee because you have that brand behind it. When you see the Longhouse blue, when you see the Longhouse, it's on my mug, the Longhouse symbol, when you see any of our blue things, that makes you feel like, oh, I'm going to get a relief. And I think that's because we try to make the micro sections of our process enjoyable.
I think that's a very interesting insight, that kind of final experience of the project. Like a lot of the project could have gone very, very well. Certainly when we used to have an agency, I always remember reminding our team, we did quite complex software development things, but just get to visual output that the client can experience, like get it in the browser as quickly as possible, because that's when they actually experience. They don't experience code, they don't experience infrastructure, they don't experience any of those things. So getting it into something that they can experience, and then having, we were one of the very early BugHerd customers, and that's why I understood the value of the product, because to your point there, it gets, if you can give them a good experience through that final part, then they leave going, oh yeah. But you can undo a whole lot of very good work by having that, last bit just be, kind of messy and convoluted, I guess, and things getting lost, and that frustration builds and isn't able to be transitioned into new work. I'm curious, do you leave BugHerd in production on production sites? So once it kind of goes into production, do you leave BugHerd in order to kind of generate that ongoing maintenance work?
That's a good question. Yeah, we do, especially for web maintenance clients that sign up afterwards when the website's live. For SEO and AEO, especially if we're generating content such as like service pages or blog posts, we'll definitely leave BugHerd enabled so they can leave feedback on those. So yeah, it's definitely a tool that extends outside the normal project lifecycle.
Yep, great. Yeah, it's always an interesting one for me, because not everybody does, and I know sometimes that's determined by kind of client environments. It's sometimes hard to leave certain tooling kind of in their production environment, but we do see it as a kind of fairly regular pattern as well. Um, what was one kind of process change that you made throughout this that seemed small at the time, but it had an outsized impact, whether that's within BugHerd or kind of any of the other activities that you looked at?
I have an answer for agency owners or business owners that will sound small. Um, However, I would say it's one of the more important things that I personally have done within growing the business. And I mentioned that we had pajama era. What came after pajama era was the chaos era, and that was the hardest. That's when our team went from 4 to 12 team members. And that
Hmm.
was really tough because our employment costs went up, but we also lost about 40% of our business during that time because they were so used to working with Austin and I.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
One of the small things that helped me get out of the chaos era was starting to dress different. I went from wearing pajamas to wearing a suit every single day. And I've very much encouraged our whole team to uh, dress professionally, not necessarily a suit, but put effort into how you present yourself to the world, how you present yourself to the Longhouse clients. And the culture impact that I've noticed from that has uh, been significant.
That's interesting, because I've went away from wearing suits entirely after after leaving. I don't think I've put on a suit for a while, but I'm in a different world these days. Certainly back in the advertising days, I would say that was very true. How you present yourself has a very has an outsized impact on the way on people's perception, particularly if you're in that new business type of role, for sure. Like you're client facing in that way. Um, no matter how much I dislike that truth, it is true. Um, it's, I guess, like we've talked about a lot of stuff based on time, but really like practical advice just to get to kind of wrap up, and then we'll get into Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, we've got a few in the Q&A that we'll get to, but please add them either into the chat or the Q&A as well. And because we'll get to that after this, just before we wrap up. But so for agencies that you would say that, still in that kind of messy before they're getting sent printouts of screenshots with marked up red things, or it's all in email, or for those agencies that are in that messy stage, what are three really practical things that they can do today to get out of that chaos stage and into something that's more structured and allows them to grow the business more effectively?
Awesome. Let's volley these back and forth. I'll start with one, you do another one, and then we'll see who has a good third one. Uh, Number one, I would say, is like invest in your team and invest in your infrastructure by giving your team the tools to be successful, and then also painting a picture of what does that success mean for their growth within the company or within the agency as well. Employee turnover in the branding and marketing space is disgusting.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest edges you can get is by finding great, passionate people and then keeping them.
Mhm. Yeah, kind of relating to that is with the people in the business is try to replicate yourself and the skills that you have in other team members. You'll find that the business will grow, and you'll be surprised like people can do what you do. And I know it for myself, it was hard to kind of let some of my, you know, small web changes go, or some project management responsibilities, but training people and people on our team, I found that really helped start to grow the business.
The last one that I would jump in is make sure that you're finding time to build your own business as well. We get, 70% of our lead generation from either being at the top of a Google search or from being the answer within an AI engine like ChatGPT. Already, 44% of company searches are happening within an AI-enabled platform like ChatGPT or Gemini.
Yep.
And whether it's for your own business or for your clients' businesses, uh, getting them set up to be successful in this new innovation and always being on top of any innovation that comes with the time that you're saving from that infrastructure or replicating yourself is the play time that you need to stay on top.
I'm reminded of the phrase, like, you're making sure you got to work on the business, not in the business. And it's exactly that. Both of you touched on that now, and I think that's excellent advice. I'm really interested that both of you, when you answered that, went back to kind of team and culture, something I care a lot about as well. And I think it's a reflection of why if you say you have lower churn and things like that, is that you think about how your team works. And what you can do to make their lives easier, which is a very important part of it. So we'll wrap up the chat then. That was excellent. We're now going to throw to some Q&A. We've got some questions in the audience, so in the Q&A. So we'll just start there. So Austin mentioned about integrating BugHerd with Slack. Do you find that this is overwhelming for team members who receive Slack messages every day? Like they haven't tried the integration yet, but are interested to see if it would be beneficial.
Yeah, I recommend keeping it muted and then maybe go in and check in every day to see kind of the list of revisions that have come in. It depends on the project. Some might have more, some might have less. So it can be overwhelming, but generally we found it to be pretty good.
Sounds like there's some work for us to do to make that
If there could be
less
like
overwhelming. And so
if
yeah,
there could be like a summary feature, that would be fantastic.
interesting. All right, we'll have that conversation. Okay, can you clarify? Have you actually integrated BugHerd with Monday.com?
We did do that initially. We found that it was just easier to track the tasks that come through directly in the Kanban board on BugHerd. as opposed to, looking at Monday. So yeah.
This connects to Jeff's question that just went into the chat, which is, it looks like Jeff has been on Basecamp for the last 15 years, which is so funny because Austin and I were looking at Basecamp earlier this morning. And what we do find cool about, Basecamp is everything is one hub. And BugHerd does say take it off platform. We find that having that separate platform for that one specific phase of the project is not a downside, but that is an interesting consideration. Austin, do you have any thoughts on what Jeff wrote there in the chat?
I can add something to that as well, because this is a conversation I have very, very regularly. And what we actually see as the most consistent pattern is some people integrate tools very deeply, two-way, and and they want that sync. Probably the most common pattern is actually they want sometimes want some of the tasks, because if you think about QA on a website build, a lot of feedback comes in very, very quickly, and to the point it can get very, very noisy. And people don't necessarily want the backlog of the main project management system they're running to be spammed by ideally you get 10 pieces of feedback, but we all know that that's not always how it works. People go through to clients, they enter a lot of feedback, and that can get very noisy if it's kind of disappearing into the main system. And so what we find people generally do is they tend to sandbox BugHerd a bit, and they'll use integrations to send specific tasks or tasks in a specific column that they want to go to the main one. Or, it might be like, hey, this one's got to go to, for additional design or something. And so they want that sent off there but for the actual kind of core volume of it, they tend to sandbox BugHerd for what it's good at in that situation. And Austin, sorry for jumping in. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that.
No, you pretty much nailed it there. I just wanted to say, like, what BugHerd having the like the comment box, so we could have a conversation with our clients on the feedback they're leaving. I could see how that would be hard to integrate with another project management system to, have the conversation flow both ways. So, like you mentioned, it is better to sandbox it and keep that function separate.
Great. Okay. Do you use BugHerd feedback on web designs?
Yeah.
All
Sorry,
the
what was the
time.
question?
Do you use BugHerd for feedback on the design thing? So I mean, I guess
Okay.
there's two parts to this question. I'll elaborate on there. I guess there's what comes out of Figma design, and then there's as you said, you design in the browser with Elementor. Do you use BugHerd for feedback on both of those, or only the Elementor version?
Only for the Elementor version. So we do present our projects in two phases. So we have the homepage phase, where that gives the client the opportunity to see like the layout, the colors, typography, all those sorts of things. With the feedback we received through BugHerd on that, we then design the rest of the key pages. And then again, we have another revision phase where they leave feedback on those pages.
My experience of this is often that clients don't engage entirely with the design until it's the thing in the browser. And I think we touched on it, I touched on this a little bit earlier, and so did you, Kenan. Like once someone can interact, that's when they start going, I didn't think it would look like that. That's they kind of see a design and go, this is great, and they sign it off. But obviously not everything looks exactly the same in a browser either. It's not always possible to make that work. But yeah, I certainly find that once get into that browser, that's when they fully engage with every part of that design that they may not have thought about before. And a final question, because I think it's an excellent one for anybody in an agency: do you and your team work long hours?
We don't. We work pretty standard work hours, so we work 9 to 5. Ourselves, Austin and I, we are both married and enjoy spending time with our wives, and we both have hobbies as well. Austin's the best guitar player I've ever met, and I still do my Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I've been doing for like 18 years. So we do not subscribe to the idea that in order to grow an agency, we're Canada's fastest growing agency. We were named the fastest growing branding agency in the world. And we're doing that by, simplifying our own to-do list and focusing on what actually needs us individually the most in the business during our 8-hour workday. Do I sometimes, think about the business while I'm laying on my pillow? Yeah, because I really love it. I love what we do. I love the partners that we help. Do I think about it in the shower? Yes, I do. But that's because I'm choosing to and because I love it. But are we responding 24/7 and feeling the stress that I once felt during the chaos era of our business? No, we've now elevated in past the pajama era, past the chaos era. We successfully navigated the formal era where I started wearing my suits. We are now in our national era where we have extended the Longhouse reach and brand authority across Canada. And we'll see what's next after that.
There is that I always think of the busy work versus the value work, right? And being a lot of the stuff actually isn't needed. There are often very key things that are the most important, and that value work and getting time to do that, to think about that. That's the stuff that really compounds both for your own business, but also for your clients' businesses as well. And just before we wrap up, we've got one last question. So, do you assign one team member to complete each project, or do you assign different phases of each project to different specialist team members?
That's a great question. So we do assign the phases of the project to different team members. So if we're talking about content writing, we do have a content specialist who would take on that role. And then we also have like the project manager who manages the entire project from start to finish. For specialist work, we do split it amongst team members. So we have a few different specialists that would work on the project, incorporate revisions, and the results manager is the person who oversees that and ensures that those changes and feedback is communicated to the client.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you both. It's been a great, really genuinely interesting session. Thank you to everyone who's joined from around the world. Lots of people from everywhere, which is always great to see. I hope this helped give a clear view of what's possible when you get your workflow right and focus on kind of team culture. Get out of that, to use the phrase, pajama phase through the chaos phase, through the formal phase. I really like that definition. So we'll send out this recording shortly. When you exit, there'll be a short feedback survey. We obviously love feedback here at BugHerd, so do us a favor and fill that out. If you'd like to learn more about BugHerd, how we help agencies streamline feedback, deliver projects faster, head over to bugherd.com. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you again, Austin and Keenan. Really appreciate your time today, and we'll chat soon.
Always good to talk, Stephen.
Thanks for having us.